Hey, you can't park there.
Oh no! He came off the sled and got back on. Wild. First bow tie of the year?
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into an early season trip. I'm gonna cover all of those things that I do to prep for a successful early season trip and travel up to Revelstoke and get the first ride of the season in. To consistently get epic first trip rides, it takes a bit of planning and coordinating and paying attention to weather and kind of stacking everything in your favor for it. I think there's about 5 categories, like main categories, to look at to plan the perfect early season trip. So the first is going to be weather and snow. One of the most obvious and easiest ways to track snow is to look at the ski hill webcams. And what I look for is the amount of snow held in the trees, kind of showing like the most recent storm, the amount of snowpack on the ground, and then the snow in the cliffs in the distance. So right now I can see a little bit of grass sticking out, so we know we're around, what, 2.5, 3 feet of snowpack there, maybe a little bit less. Okay, next thing I look at is the weather stations. I'm gonna pull the one up for Keystone because that's an easy one to demonstrate. The main thing that I look at is last year's snow and then the historical daily median value. So right now we can see we're at about 220 millimeters of snow water equivalent, roughly 8 inches of snow water equivalent, and then anywhere from, like, in my opinion, from like 8 to 12 is kind of where it gets to be decent riding. All right, our second category for successful early season trip is truck prep. I like to use tough boxes and throw them under my sled deck to organize everything. I have one for tools, one for truck chains and tow strap. This tough box is for parts and this one's for parts. I carry way more parts than you'll probably need, but a set of carbides is a good thing to have in there, a set of rear wheels and a set of A-arms. That should cover most everything. Another common thing to do early season is rails, but rails aren't very practical to carry, so I don't carry those in the truck. Loaded up, Luke is gonna take his truck and sled deck and drive up separate. Nate's driving here from Idaho Falls, and then he's gonna hop in my rig with me.
He said wheels up by 5. A little late this morning.
Yeah, there's no point in even going. We're gonna miss we pretty much missed the entire day already.
Gearing up at Mountain Motorsports and then heading out with Aaron to ride Quartz Creek. We did pretty good on time. I think we did like 7.5 hours or so to get here.
Pretty good.
So just like cracking the throttle on the trail in, I got an insane adrenaline rush and was so fired up. And then hitting the Alpine right up here and doing like the first wheelie was overstimulating. I feel like I might explode. I'm so pumped to be back on a sled. This is your backyard, huh?
Backyard.
Not too shabby.
Hey, you can't park there. You got a guy stuck down in the creek down there. Elevator was a little bit more icy than anticipated. And of course, Caleb's up over there just having a blast over in these trees. You can find him.
The third category for having a perfect early season trip is sled setup. There's not a ton of early season specific sled setup, so I'll just give a couple good reminders on things. Having the right height handlebars is super important. Setting up your controls in a way that's comfortable and you can always keep a finger on the brake. Getting your shocks dialed in for your body weight and riding style. Those are the key parts of sled setup. For early season specific things, I like to be able to control my wheelie a little bit more and run my shocks just a little bit softer. Oftentimes the snowpack's not as dense and we're not riding with as much aggression and speed, so just a hair softer than a normal setup works pretty good. Running the rear track shock a little softer lets the front end come up a little bit more, and that is super beneficial for keeping it light on the skis and some of the riding techniques I'll talk about later in the video.
Morning, Caleb.
Yeah, I'm a little sore from yesterday, even though it was a short day. I rode really hard for like 30 minutes, and that was enough to make me sore. But feeling a little more optimistic about today and ready to ride. I mean, I was optimistic about yesterday, but I just knew I was going to get my ass kicked. Today, I feel like I'm ready to kick some ass.
coolest thing in the world.
The fourth category for a perfect early season ride is being able to read snow once you're out on the mountain. Man, I feel like this is one of the more important parts of everything, and not breaking parts is just being able to guess and estimate what type of snow you're working with. I like to try to get to the highest subalpine or kind of like top of tree level riding zone I can. It's generally where the most snow is. As soon as you go above that, there might be pockets of more snow, but you're often dealing with a lot more rocks and a little bit more wind and exposure. So stuff like this ends up generally having the most snowpack and being the best to ride. Some things that I'm looking for a good hillside are pillows. If I can see that the snow's stacked nicely on top of whatever's under the snow, that's a good sign that it didn't have wind and it didn't get blown flat. A hillside that would be really scary is the one across the valley, where I just see a little bit of rock face and then completely smooth everywhere. If a hillside's completely smooth, it's either grass and it's probably good riding, or it's been wind affected and it's full of landmines everywhere, and I wouldn't even try to touch it. But oftentimes when you get in a little bit denser trees like this, it's often relatively grassy underneath. And then when there are rocks, you can see the snow stacked on top of it. So you can kind of guess what's there. I normally do not plow through the pillows. I try to skirt around them as much as possible until I know I have safe snowpack. Last point I want to mention in this category kind of overlaps with riding technique, but I never trust the snow until it's proven to be supportive and relatively good. So every single hillside I touch, I'm tiptoeing in it until it looks good. So if I want to ride this slope, I'm going to come in slow. I'm not going to be diving a spindle in. I'll start throttling, and as I feel the track trench and as I feel it digging in snowpack, not hitting anything, then I'll increase the aggression throughout that line. Anytime I get to the top of a little ridge line, I start letting off a little bit and feeling again, trying to feel what that track's hitting, because oftentimes the ridges have less snow than the middle of the slope or down towards the meadow.
Yeah, you don't want to nail that one. Oh, not on day one. What's up, dude?
It feels so good on your hands.
So Nate hasn't watched this video yet, and that's why he bent an A-arm. Once you watch this video, guaranteed to never bend an A-arm again.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, well that's A-arm number 2 for the day.
Yeah, so Luke hasn't watched this video either. So once he watches this video, this will never happen again.
I had the first one. Luke's got the second. Hopefully that's it.
Fifth category for the perfect early season ride is riding technique. Now I could spend video after video after video just talking about riding technique. I'm gonna keep it fairly high level and not really get into the nitty gritty just so I can cover everything. More videos to come on this stuff. So first thing's riding light on the skis. I feel like this has been talked about quite a bit. The main thing here is just keeping the skis from digging deep into the snowpack. When the track digs deep into the snowpack, it can smash off things and not ruin your line, and you can keep going. When a spindle or ski smashes into something in the snowpack, it stops your momentum instantly, bends an A-arm like we've seen before, and just ruins your line, often resulting in broken parts or going over the bars or something like that. It's easier said than done, so this comes with riding experience and just becoming a more advanced rider. You can learn to keep the skis up and maintain your balance and control your sled in a wheelie. I would recommend checking out my pro level riding tip series and watching the video on how to control a wheelie. That'll give you a really good foundation for learning to ride with your weight shifted back a little bit and the skis up. New sleds are crazy easy to side hill. Generally it's easier to tip it on edge and hold it on edge than to ride slightly off camber across like a low angle slope. Early season, I like to keep the skis flat as much as possible because if you do hit something, you're not weighting the spindle as much and you're more likely to float over it. When you get to a hill that requires side hilling, like the one that I'm on right here, I'll hold a side hill normal, try to keep it light on the skis, and then as I start feeling dirt or an obstacle, I take the angle of the sled and roll it down a little bit
and I start feathering the throttle. The combination of that track angle getting rolled down a little bit and feathering the throttle helps to keep it from washing out. Most of the time when people wash out on like rocks and logs, it's because they're using way too much throttle and the sled's leaned over too far and the ass end just wants to kick down super aggressive. Last part of riding technique I'm going to share with you guys is deloading the skid. This technique I think is highly overlooked in snowmobiling. I feel like it's covered a lot in dirt biking, but sledders just kind of forget that we have shocks that we can control and we can compress them, and once they're compressed, they're going to rebound at some point. And if we know how to control that with throttle and brake and rider input, it can give us a huge advantage. You can weight the skid, compress the shocks, get it to deload, no matter what type of riding you're doing, whether you're in a wheelie, whether you're climbing flat, whether you're on the trail, side hilling. So I use this all the time, and basically all I'm doing is hitting the throttle and pushing down towards the back of the running board. That's going to compress the shocks and then let off, and I kind of lighten my foot on the board, and that combination will cause the shocks to rebound and deload, and that can be super useful for getting out of a deep trench that you're fighting, popping up over a log, getting through a thin spot in the snowpack. That combined with feathering the throttle through that obstacle, whatever it is, seems to work really good, and it allows me to get up and over something or get through a section that doesn't have traction and continue my line. In my opinion, the hardest part about this is figuring out the timing. Best thing to do is just practice this over and over and over until you are so dialed on it you can't get it wrong. Well, I'll try to explain the timing the best I can. We'll pretend that this track right here is a log, and I pick a angle in about like this, and I need to deload to get over it. So coming in, my goal is going to be to preload the front suspension about here. That can be done with a throttle chop. So the skis dip into the snow a little bit, hammer down on the throttle, the skis come up. I have ski lift through here, and then the front of my track as it gets to about this point, which is 2.5, 3 feet back from our make-believe log here, is when I want the skid to start rebounding. So at this point, shortly after hammering down on the throttle, I'm going to let off the throttle and try to pull my weight off the running boards and let those shocks rebound. I'm also going to because I let off the throttle, the track's not going to be spinning at a fast rate, and it's just going to be kind of coasting over it. It'll coast up and over my obstacle. As soon as my track's starting to get on the other side, that's when I get on the throttle, but I don't hammer down on the throttle until my track's completely over whatever slippery thing that I'm hitting, whether it's rocks, shallow snowpack, grassy hillside, log, pretty much anything like that. This concept's a little tough for me to explain, so hopefully that makes sense. I'll definitely be doing more videos on this because it's a fun thing to talk about, and I think it's a huge part that's missing for a lot of riders. Well, we're kind of losing some of our light. Hit everything on the agenda for today, so I think we're gonna go meet up with the rest of the group, burn the rest of our gas, and call it a day.
Deep inside your soul, there's a hole you don't want to see. Every single day, what you say makes no sense to me. Even though I try, I can't get my head around you. Somewhere in the night, there's a light in front of me. Heaven up above with the child, I bet it's me. Even though I try, I fall in the river of you. You managed to bring me down to
I think it's okay. Look at it. Yeah!